Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the shop. We're back again with Dave here and we're going to be finishing up the table today. Or at least getting there. So yeah, last time we left it with the glue up and we're going to take it apart and smooth it out, attach it to the top and do all those kind of details, and then hopefully I'll have time to put a coat of finish on at least one side. We'll talk through a couple different types today. As to things coming up onto the calendar, there's a MWTCA meet on the 7th of August in Garfield, Wisconsin. It is one of my all-time favorites. It's an outdoor one.
Illinois, right?
Garfield, Illinois, not Wisconsin. I said that the last time, didn't I? It's one where you don't have to be a member to go to it, but you have to be a member to get there in for the first 2 or 3 hours, and that's when the best deals are. And so if you're an MWTCA member, you get to go in there, and it's amazing deals, absolutely awesome show. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it this year, which is really sad. Our family's going to be doing something else, so oh well. But
So
if you
sad
can
to
make it,
spend
it's
time
well
with
worth it. What's that?
So sad to spend time with family.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. So let's dive into this. First thing you do is take this out, and you've already done that on yours.
Yeah.
But I actually haven't had a chance to take mine apart and look at what's underneath, so we'll do that as a group and show you just how bad things can actually get. Because I think a lot of people kind of expect perfection, but on YouTube particularly, it's really hard to show imperfection. You have to actually work at it to show it. It's not something you hide, it just doesn't show up. And so after that, we make sure it doesn't fall apart. But let's see how this looks. So I got a pretty decent gap on this one. Okay. Ooh, that one's nice and sharp. I like that one. That's the one the camera sees. A bit of gap on that one. Here, I'll show you the bad one. So that one's the worst gap. It isn't that bad, but it's more than I want. Of course, no gap is what I want at all. So on this one, you can see the gap right in there, and then up on top, it didn't quite close up all the way up top there. But thankfully that's on the bottom, so you don't actually see it that much. Other than that, it came out pretty well, so I'm okay with that. So the next thing we need to do is step on the clamps that I just set down on the floor. Next thing we need to do is actually flatten the top of this. Now, one of the initial thoughts is that this needs to be flat. Oops, I forgot to hit the wrong button. Oops, sorry. There, I hit the fade to black button. One of the thoughts is that the top of this needs to be perfectly flat, so it matches with the flat of the tabletop. And this doesn't need to be flat, because when I screw this down to the top, this will conform to whatever the top is. This just has to be relatively smooth so there's no gap between it. And so on all of these, some of them are a little higher than others. So we're going to show a couple different methods of doing that. My favorite is actually just to put it in the faced end vise here. And one at a time, hit it with a plane. And so I'm going to grab, let's see, my 4.5 is sharp right now. And so with this, we can set on here. And just like before, let's advance it a little bit. Oh, it actually helped to tighten the thing down. Now it's advanced too much. Whoa! Okay, something's up with this one. Oh! I don't have the... I stole the iron out of it for another project. I forgot about that. So yeah, let's grab a different plane. There's something wrong with that one. Let's see. Let's go with the low angle for today, because we're going to be doing some odd angles here. So on this one, I'm just going to come in here, and I'm just going to the middle. So I'm not going all the way across. I'm just doing it in the middle. I want this to be flush. So I want to make sure that I'm getting here and here. And so what I'll be doing is coming out into this, and when I get to the middle here, I kind of skew it at about 45 degrees and round around the corner until I'm just touching this. So it doesn't take much at all. I need a little bit more on this side. And that little whip around the corner allows you to go kind of against the grain in the opposite direction. And then rotate it and do the other corner. So we can do it 4 at a time. So I'm going to do 2 of these, and I'll let you do 2.
All right.
And so on this one, Now this one's actually considerably heavier, and the top of the leg, I'm having to hit this little corner of it. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more and show you this a little better. Focus. There you go. I'm having to hit the very top of the end grain here to get this down to flush. And that's about good. I'm just looking for something that feels flush-ish. Doesn't have to be perfect. And yell at me if there's any questions that pop up.
Yeah. There's no questions. I just felt like yelling.
Yeah, you're good at it.
Hey.
What? All right, here. This is a fun one, so I'll let you have this one.
All right.
So that one's up a good bit high. So wrapping around the corner, you're back up so that the plane is like in the middle of this board.
Like you start
So the idea is to go middle of this board, around into the middle of this board.
Got it.
Yeah, you notice you got a shaving on the end here, and you didn't get a shaving until here. So this side of this board is still a little low. Okay. So you want to go until you get one shaving that goes all the way around. Yeah.
Is that about it, or?
Oh, keep going, a little more. Let's see. Yeah, still have a good high spot there.
Oh yeah.
And another thing you're hitting here is when you get to this point, you're kind of going off and hitting the air over in here. So you want to carry through. And the idea is that you should come through until the blade hits this corner here. And then you pivot on this corner of the blade. And then you're continuing around.
So you're sort of pivoting, you're not curving.
Yeah, you're pivoting it right at that corner. At least that's the technical perfect way to do it. Yeah.
I just want to yell, pivot!
Just a couple more shavings.
Are you ready for a question?
Sure.
Alex wants to know, what if one doesn't have that big vise to hold the table?
I'm going to show a couple other methods here in a moment. Yeah, what we're getting,
sounds like,
there's a little bit of ingrain here that's popping off. So this one's flush. Oh, that's one flush. That's flush too. Yeah, right there. Let me show the last corner a different way. This is actually the way that Dave did it. And there's a bunch of different ways of doing it. But that's my favorite. If you've got a big vise like that, use it. There's a reason I use that vise more than anything else. Is I'm going to set this flat on the bench. And the idea is I want to hit the stretcher, and I don't really need to hit the end grain of the wood because most of the time the stretcher is going to be sticking a little bit much. If I'm hitting the end grain of the wood, then I'm going to be focusing on that. But in this case, I'm going to kind of treat it like a shooting board. Let's see, we did this one, so I still need to hit this one. Let me zoom in here. 3. And so I could grab, actually let me just go ahead and do that. Hold fast. Don't need a hold fast, it just kind of makes it a little bit simpler. So I can put the hold fast on here to hold this flush down. Yeah, my hand isn't that strong. I should use my head instead. And now what I basically have is a shooting board here. And so the leg is holding the stretcher off by a 1/4 inch or so. And that's allowing me to go along this. So I can hit this on here. And at this point, I want to go until the blade just goes into the middle here. See how I just stopped here. I don't want to continue all the way through. I don't want to blow out the end of this. Because I'm just hitting this down until I get to that surface there. And at this point, I'm running into this one. And so technically, I should flip it over so that I can plane down this way. And I just want to get this one a little closer. But what I'm going to do is I know I have a little bit more to hit on this, so I'm actually just going to blow through the end fibers on this. And that's got me flush here, but not there. So we can loosen this up, rotate it around this way, and we can do basically the exact same thing coming from the other direction. So in this method, rather than hitting each corner, you'd be hitting a full side. And just like that, we've gotten this edge flush all the way around. This button. So, yeah. The other way you could do it is just getting 2 clamps, or 2 pipe clamps, or beam clamps, and clamping it to the side of the bench. So if I put it on here, I mean, I could do it in the leg vise. You didn't need that one. I can put it in the leg vise and just clamp the stretcher down like this. Or I could grab long clamps to go from outside here underneath the bench and grab onto the other side and just pull the whole thing all the way across. And with that, I have it stable enough that I probably could do 2 sides at once rather than just doing 1 corner at a time. And so there's a bunch of different ways to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is just a mating surface to the tabletop. It doesn't even have to be perfect to that because if there's a tiny little gap, no one's going to be going like, oh, there's a gap. No one cares. No one cares. So we've got that. I'm going to clear off enough of this bench so we can put 2 of these up here. Got any questions, babe?
I have a couple. So DavidG wants to know, how will you be attaching the top?
We will be talking about that. We'll be attaching the top tonight too. We're going to use figure 8 clips, but I'm going to talk through a couple different methods. Historically, the most historical method of doing it would be pocket holes. I knew I just blew a couple people's minds there. Yes, pocket holes are historically accurate and one of the most common ways of doing it. That's the way the Shakers would have done it, with pocket holes. You could do sliding dovetails, but that would require a different board, different design. You could do wooden block cleats that fit into a groove, but in that case you still have to worry about a screw, and then the wooden blocks have a tendency to break when someone tries and picks it up. So different strokes for different folks, but I love figure 8 clips. Speaking of which, came in my top. Actually, put both of them up here. Actually, before I do that,
should I come back over on your side?
Yeah, I'll switch places with you. One thing at a time. I've got a towel to put down. Every shop should have a towel that moves cameras around. This is the towel that's probably the most flammable thing in our house.
I thought you were going to say it was the oldest towel that we own.
That's one of those. It's the bath towel that is no longer good for bathing. But I've put so many coats of BLO into this thing. You can set your top up over here. I'm going to put that down just to protect it because we have actually smoothed these out, and I hit it with some 400 grit sandpaper, so I don't want to mess that up. So upside down on this, we can take our tops.
Oops. James, are you going to stay on the camera that you are?
Yeah, is this in the way?
Yeah, it's a little bit. That's way better.
Let me turn this a little bit more too. This will be over here, like that. And so with this on here, now we're going to flip this upside down and just see where we're at. Because the important thing is that this fits. And sometimes you'll have 2 corners that touch and then the other 2 that will wobble. In this case, mine's actually, wow, it's flat. Okay, how's yours?
Mine's got just a teeny bit of a corner wobble. It had a lot more till I explained.
99.9% of the time, it's going to look like that. And honestly, I was expecting mine to do that, so I was like, oh yeah, this will be a great opportunity to show, but then it doesn't.
Mine doesn't at all.
Here, let's 3. So, come on. Let me in. My HDMI cable's having issues. Here. Finicky, stupid thing. Oh, there we go. No. There. Ha! So, this one's got, what, a 1/16 of an inch from corner to corner. So, I mean, almost nothing. And a 1/16 of an inch means you need a 32nd of an inch taken off of one top or the other. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're actually going to secure this down to the top. And so the top will flatten this out. So once we screw it down, this will take out that 1/16 of an inch, and it will become nice and solid. So in this case, we don't need to worry about that. And that's one of the things I really want to show is that you don't have to make the top of the table base perfectly flat, especially not on something like this. If you have a tabletop that's like a big dining room table with 6 legs, 8 legs, or more, you have more than a simple twisting frame, then you need to worry about flattening it. But in this case with 4, you can twist it any way you want and secure it down to the top, and you're not going to have to worry about it. So don't overthink that. Next thing we need to do is we're going to use figure 8 clips. Slide, yeah, if you can hand those over here.
Slide figure 8 clips, you want
a little more. And I'm going to show a close-up of how this works, and then we're going to put a couple of them in. Because these are really fun because they're an elegant and simple design that I absolutely love. So what a here's the 3. What a figure 8 clip is this thing that's out of focus. There we go. It's this little clip here. One nub is smaller than the other one. This one is countersunk on this side. This one's countersunk on that side. And what they do is they end up going into the skirt of the tabletop. Here, let's focus on this one over here, actually. This one will show it better. No, not the wall behind. There we go. So this clip, I have the recessed in the countersunk in the large end. I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to have the countersunk on this end, and it goes in here and I can put a screw in, and this will allow the expansion and contraction of the top. So the top grain will be going this way, so as the top expands and contracts, this will be allowed to shift back and forth. This also gives you a very strong connection to the skirt, a very strong connection to the top. You put 4 of these in at 4 points around it, and you get a really strong connection here. The only thing you have to do that takes some time is recessing in this top so this piece goes in. And so we're going to show that. Can you hit the 4 again? So I'm going to take this, set it down on the floor, and we're going to do this over here rather than at the bench because you need some space. So why don't you come around over here. Actually, can you grab the 2 braces when you come?
Yep.
And we're going to do this right there. And 3. So, first thing I have in here is I have a bit that is, it's a little smaller than an 1/8 inch. I don't remember what size it is. It's about 0.08 inches. And I need to find out where I want this clip to go. And it really doesn't matter. In this case, I just said I want one here, and I want one here. So in this case, I'm going to bring it over here. And I don't want it to be so far into the head that it sticks out onto the face of it. And so I'm going to put it somewhere around here. I'm going to go, that's where I want it. I'll make a mark. I'll put this in. And I have that stop on there so I don't go too deep, especially on the top. But on this side, it really doesn't matter. So I want this one to go down to there. That's just going to give me a location where the screw will go. And this is a bit that is sized for the wooden screws that come with the figure 8s. I should have put a clip to the link to the figure 8 in the end. But if you search on Amazon figure 8 wood clip, they'll come up. So I got those on there. And then I've got an auger bit that is ever so slightly larger than the diameter of the larger lobe on the figure 8 clip. Oop. Drop it on the floor. So I can put that into that same hole. And at this point, you're going to ask yourself 2 things. When I run this in here, there's a high chance that this will split. So I could grab a clamp and clamp it on. But in this case, I don't care. I'm going to split it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to show both. I'll clamp the other one, but this one I'll see if it splits. There's a high chance it'll split, but there's a chance it won't. And I'm just going to go down a little ways. When I think I'm down far enough, I grab the clip, put it on there, and see, now I got to go a little more. It's better to go too little than too much. And at this point, I'll wait until it engages and just go another half turn. That's enough, because a full turn of this is a 1/16 inch, because these are 1/16 inch screws. So then I'm going to grab my 3/8 chisel. With a 3/8 chisel, I'm just going to square out the end of this, or a little bit wider than a square. I'll chop down, and chop down, and then we're going to pare out that little chunk that we just chopped. Pare out, and just like that, we now have a slot that our figure 8 clip can fit into and rotate. It doesn't need much rotation. It actually only needs like 32nd of an inch movement from side to side on this one. So here, I'll have you do the other one on this.
All right.
Any questions, babe?
Not necessarily related to the project, but it's about MWTCA.
Okay, what is it?
So Hotman6 wants to know, when are you speaking in Michigan City? I signed up for the MWTCA and haven't gotten any info.
I will be speaking on Thursday afternoon. Just a little more.
Is that in
That?
August or October?
Quarter crank more. Right there. It is the end of September, early October.
End of September, October.
I think that's a little too short. Let's see. It's always better to test than. Actually, that's right about dead on. Here, feel that.
Oh yeah. Almost perfectly flush.
Perfect. Here.
All right.
And if you get it just a little below, it's not a problem. You just don't want it any higher, because if it's higher, then it'll just lift the top up. You want to pare it back a little bit farther, because you want to.
Oh yeah.
You don't want it to be like straight out. You want it to be slightly wider than 90 degrees to the edge. Give that figure eight a little bit of turn. Yeah, I just decided the topic for it will be tools that I find interesting and fun and not often used. So we'll actually be taking a bunch of them and demonstrating them.
Is that good?
Let's see. We'll go this way. Actually, I think it needs to go a little lower. So what you can do is you can take the chisel, bevel down, and just pare it out. Or bevel up and from the outside.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just pare it down a little bit at that lump. Because sometimes the auger, one of the blades, is at a lower point than the others. Or there's a higher point left over. Yeah, that's perfect. Right there.
So the question I have for this talk is, are you using tools you already own, or are you using it as an excuse to purchase new ones?
He's like, I hadn't thought of that.
I plead the fifth. No, I have thought of that. No, I have. I've been reaching out to a few people with that have them to bring them.
So when you start talking and pull out the Stanley #1,
that's not a fun tool to use. That's a painful tool to use. That thing is so let's attach these clips. Can you grab the Phillips screwdriver right there? And there should be a bag of screws. Yep.
Yeah.
And so at this point, we're going to attach them. Now, whenever you're putting in a small screw, it doesn't matter as much with the steel, but if they're brass, you want, the wax is over there. I had everything set up for this. I just put it at the other end of the bench. So I'm just going to load this screw up with a little bit of wax. That allows it to run in a little bit easier so you're not cranking anything over. And then grab a screwdriver, and can you hit the 3? And then make sure I have this on the right direction. Set it in here and run it down. I want to put the figure 8 clip all the way down into the socket. Otherwise the screw might try and put it in a different place. And just like that, it's on. Let's do a couple more. You want to do one?
Sure.
Here, I'll grab another screwdriver. That one works. Any other questions?
Mm-mm.
So you wax them up and just drag it across the wax. Loads the
I thought you
threads
had
up a
a
little bit.
potato for a second. It's like, what is he holding?
And then set it in, put the figure 8 in first, and then run it down. Oops. And don't over tighten wood screws.
Yeah.
Wood screws should just go down until they're at the right pressure.
So just do it right.
Yeah. I remember doing that with my dad as we were working in a car. How tight should we torque this, Dad? He said, enough. And so with these on, now we can flip it over and attach it to the top. So you can get a view of my back for a moment. Here, set these over here. Fun of live and a recorded video, we cut this out.
Yeah.
I'm going to need...
This is yours, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to need the one with the small bit still.
The one, oh, right, because you got to do that. Makes sense.
Got to countersink them. So I'm going to grab a pen or a pencil, and we're going to come in here, and here's another fun point. Some people are going to grab a tape measure or a ruler, and they're going to space this whole thing out so that everything is spaced exactly where it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this corner over here. I'm going to say, that looks about right. Look at this corner, that doesn't look quite the same. I'm going to go back and forth, or about there. Go go over here. Yeah, you need a little bit that way. You need a little bit that way. Just going to play it back and forth until, you know, that looks good. Because the only thing that matters is that it looks good. It doesn't have to be dead on. It doesn't have to be accurate. Because the eye is going to be what's judging it in the future. So why not mark it with the eye? And then once we have those marked, I'm going to come with that same bit. And I've got a stop on here. I've got a video talking about these, one of my favorites. But what this will do is make it so I don't drill through onto the other side. I've done that before. It's not an easy mistake to hide. There aren't a lot of oak toothpicks you can jam into that hole. And so we can run all of these out. Can you grab 4 screws out of the bucket? I know, I'm not using the demon yellow brace.
Demon yellow brace.
Excuse me, demon possessed yellow brace. And just like that, she's ready to attach. There's only 2 ways it can go on, and I put it on the wrong way. That's the way it works.
Shot.
Where's the wax? Oh, right there.
Here you go.
If you want to grab one, I'll grab one, and we'll throw this thing on there and get to finishing. What time is it? Oh, 8:30. Okay, we're good. I was thinking we're like 45 minutes in. Okay, so we got some time for questions if anyone has anything. And we're going to throw some Rubio monocoat on this. I'm going to talk about a couple different finish types. The nice thing about this, the thing I like about the figure 8 clips. What's that? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. The nice thing about the figure 8 clips is that they're easy to fix, they're easy to repair, they're easy to take the top on and off for moving, and they're really secure. They're solidly secure. They're
Secalid, a new word.
And I have no fear at all about picking this up by the top. And, you know, on this one, it's not a huge problem because the base doesn't weigh that much. But if you're on like a big dresser, like upstairs, the dresser I made for my wife is huge and incredibly heavy. And these clips hold that weight perfectly. If I were to do a dovetail slide, someday that's going to wear out. If I were to do pocket holes, those tend to fail, and then the only answer is to create a new pocket hole, and so you're just running in more holes. These are a little bit easier to repair, and they don't catastrophically fail. You end up with the clip actually bending a little bit, and rather than putting straight force into the threads, you're actually putting a bit of a torsion force on it, so they hold a little bit better. I just really like them. They're simple, easy. The only thing is that they're not historical, because it is actually kind of a newer method. Whereas pocket holes, those are historical, and most people think they're not. So, yeah. Any questions?
Yes. Warren Munn asked, "What's James's favorite wood scent wise?
Scent-wise?
When sawing, the driftwood oak I was given smells amazing on the bandsaw."
You know, I have some deep nostalgic memories of red oak, which really makes most people don't like it. But that's what my dad uses almost exclusively. He loves red oak, and I'm like, okay. But it smells good to me. White oak actually doesn't have any smell to me. I don't. I love cherry. Cherry smells really good. I don't know.
James can't smell.
Yeah, I don't smell as much as most people.
And that was long before
olfactory sense is a minor sense of mine.
Anything. He
So
just can't smell.
There's our table.
Cool.
The next thing we need to talk about is leveling it out, because if it's on a surface where if it's not on carpet, if it's on a hard surface, any wobble in it is going to be a problem. So I'm just going to lift up this side and set it on here. This won't be perfectly accurate, but it'll be close. I know this one will be out. Actually, this one's
move this.
this one's off a hair. Let me see where it's at over here, because I know this is a low spot on the bench. No, it's not. So let's rotate the legs. There, now I got the wobble. I was going to say, I know this is a low spot. So I've got here, when I tip it to one side, the high leg is up about an 1/8 inch. And so that means I need to take off about a 1/16 of an inch from one of the two long legs. And so what I could do is get a spot on the bench that I know is perfectly level, or find something else you know is perfectly level and put down a high grit sandpaper, something like 50 grit. And just run that one leg around until it sits flush. And it really just takes a few strokes to do that. You just want to make sure when you do that, before you actually sand it off, chamfer the corners down so that you're not splintering off wood as you're sanding it. And it's good to actually chamfer all the corners so that you're not getting straight edges. That way, as you're sliding around the wood on the floor, it's not going to be breaking off pieces. But that being said, if you're setting this on carpet, that much of a wobble is not going to be noticed. Because on carpet, it takes up most any of that amount of wobble. So I wouldn't worry about it. But on a hardwood floor, you're going to want it to sit flat on the floor. The problem is, there ain't a floor out there that's flat. It doesn't matter how well engineered, it doesn't matter how well installed, they're not flat. And so what I would actually say is take this to the spot you want it to be and do the sandpaper trick on that spot. And now the bench will have, the table will have the spot it exists on. And then when you move, you do it again in the new spot. Because no spot is going to be perfect, and there's always going to be some wobble or some shimming that has to happen. Because especially with this table, it's not heavy enough to actually deform to the floor. If you're talking a dining room table, a lot of times dining room tables are heavy enough and large enough that they have some expanse and they will twist and warp to match the floor. And a 1/16 inch out over an 8-foot long table, no one's going to care. And if it twists out to match that, not a problem. But on something small like this, you're going to notice it. It doesn't have enough weight to deform it. And so you're going to want to fit it to the spot. So usually my suggestion is don't worry about flattening the table here. Because if you flatten it to an exact spot on the bench you know is flat, then you take it upstairs, it's going to have wobble. Because guaranteed the floor is not flat.
It's lava.
The floor is lava, yes. Yeah. Anything else I need to add to that?
I think that's good.
I think that was all I was planning to say. This feeling I was going to say something more, but no. So let's get on to the part that we all want to see. And I'm going to throw a coat of my favorite finish on here, which is Rubio Monocoat. The nice thing about Rubio Monocoat is it was designed for wood floors. So it's a very, very durable finish. But it is the closest finish I have found to boiled linseed oil. It is just, you still feel the wood. It's got lots of texture in there. It's a very matte finish. And it just looks like you've applied a little bit of oil, a little bit of paste wax on it, and it's done. So it looks like wood, but it's durable, and it's got a protection on it that, yeah, our dining room table with 3 kids for the last, we've had that now for 4 or 5 years now.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's seen a lot of beat up on it, and it looks great. The other thing I love about it is that it is probably the easiest finish to repair. If you have a spot where it's been scratched out, like if I were to take some sandpaper to my dining room table and sand a spot on it, if that were poly or varnish or lacquer or shellac, it would be a crazy pain to restore, because anytime you do a buildup on it, you can't hit one spot without hitting everything around it. And so you'll get this ring around it that has multiple layers thicker. And so feathering out a surface to actually make it disappear is unbelievably hard. You usually have to build it up and then sand it back to a matching surface. And that's just, it's painful. With Rubio Monocoat, you have a sanded spot, you just wipe it on and then wipe off the excess and it's cured. There's nothing to it. It doesn't build up on itself. It just fills in the new wood and it's done. And it's unbelievably easy to fix. So if you're worried about a surface that you have to repair in the future, that's the stuff. The other nice thing is when I open this up, you'll think, wow, is that the smell of this finish? Have you ever smelled it before?
No.
Okay, because this stuff, most finishes smell like a finish. They smell like acetone or whatever their thinner is. This stuff smells different, and it smells fantastic. it almost makes you want to drink it. And then the other thing is that there's no VOCs, so I have no problem doing this in my basement at all. You can breathe it without any fear at all. It is the easiest finish to go on. You wipe it on, you let it sit for 15 minutes, you come back with a rag, you polish it off, and it's done. An hour or two later, you could put pressure on it without having a problem. It takes about 24 hours to fully cure, but it's dry to the touch within an hour or so. It's unbelievably easy. The downside to it is it's expensive. It is expensive, but it's got all those things going for it. So I'm going to do this, and then we'll talk about some other finishes. Any questions, babe?
Let's see. Alex asked for pocket holes. Can you highlight which directions those are supposed to go?
Yeah. Here, let me show it quickly. So in the table, well, the thing about a screw is that the screw has some wiggle in there. So the screw can kind of wiggle back and forth. So what you want is in this case, I have these. Oh, I put it on. I did it backwards, so I'm going to have to rotate this later. I have the grain running this way, but my figure eights are on this side. So my grain should be running this way so that it can expand and contract across those figure eights. So I put my top on backwards. I didn't even think about that. I just put it on. And, oh well. Yes. So with putting the pocket holes in, it doesn't really matter where you put it in the top. So you can put 2 on each skirt because they have 2 dimensions of movement. They can move this way and they can move this way in that hole. So they can expand and contract in any direction. In that case, it doesn't matter. And with the figure eights, yeah, you do have to put it the other direction. So I'm going to have to drill 4 more holes a little later. Yeah. All right, Rubio monocoat here. Let's see what this stuff smells like. This comes in 2 parts, and you can apply just the finish, which is this. Oh, I got to shake it up. It just takes a while to cure. It takes, what is it, like a week and a half to fully cure by itself. And so what you have is a curing agent you can put in there, and that will allow it to cure in 24 hours or less, or actually be dry to the touch in under an hour. But you got to shake it up. And if you do it with a varnish or a lacquer, this would be anathema. You never, ever, ever, ever shake a varnish or a lacquer. Otherwise you get all these bubbles in the finish, and they don't come out because it's such a thick finish. You can thin it out, but then you end up doing 2 to 3 times as many layers. Even if you spray it, most people will tell you don't shake it, you stir it. But this stuff, shaking it's fine. So, there we go. And this pure stuff comes out almost like a yellowish color. Here, 3. There we go. And so I'm going to just eyeball this. It should be right in here. Where is it? 3, not 3 to 1. Is it 2 to 1? Where'd it go? 1 to 3. Yep, there we are. And so generally I just eyeball it unless I'm making a lot of it. I just put in a little bit. Can you hand me a rag down there? Just need to wipe off the excess. Normally I'll be doing a large thing like a dining room table because this is what I put for finishes. So I need to put in 1/3 as much of this. And this is the finishing agent, so it gets kind of crusty. So if I'm up that high, I want to do 1/3 more with this. And I'm going to go up to there. Doesn't take much. And once you poured this in, it's got a shelf life. At that point, you've got probably about 12 hours until this starts to really get solid. You'll get a skin on top in 30 minutes or so. And it starts to cure up. Though it does need oxygen to fully cure, so it won't cure as a solid block for another week, but you'll get a thick skin on top that you really don't like. Any questions, babe?
Let's see. I think you just talked about this, but I can't remember. DavidG asked, did you chamfer the bottom of the table legs?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you talked about that.
Yeah, just talked about that a moment ago when flattening it out.
Benji wants to know, why not use a piece attached to the apron from the table, to the apron from the inside to secure the top? Can drill slots in it for the screws?
Yes, that would be there's a whole bunch of different names for that. A Z-clip or a table button or a top clip or a toggle. I don't like those because they tend to break. They do not hold much weight because they're just, you got a small piece of wood with a screw going through it, they're going to split and break over time. And there is some historicality to them because pocket holes were kind of hard to make. Historicity? They are historical. But I really don't like them. They fail very easily. They are one of my least favorite methods of doing a tabletop. Though a lot of people really love them because there's more wood involved, but you still end up with a screw. So, yeah,
so either
not
way,
so much.
You're screwed.
Either way, you're screwed.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, let's show this finish going on. So now we've got a rag, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it in half. Fold it in half.
Okay, wait. Are you trying to be on the other camera?
Oh, can you hit 3 for me? I can't quite reach it.
Yep.
And so take the rag, fold it in half, fold it in half, fold it in half, and I've got this wad that I can then pull this out. Set it there. I'm going to take this, just going to dump out a bunch of it. That's probably a little more than I need for this. And I'm going to rub it around. And I'm going to let this wood soak up as much of this as it wants. You can use a squeegee to move it around because it doesn't need a crazy amount on there. And if I'm doing a large tabletop, I'm probably going to be using a squeegee to move large amounts around. But in this case, I'm just working it in to all the surface, letting it take as much as it wants. And I'm always just going to do the top on this right now, the top of the top, because when I come back around and I do the bottom, I can feather into the existing finish without fear of double lapping it, because it doesn't bond to itself, it just bonds to the new wood, which makes it so easy. And again, it's made for hardwood floors, so it's very, very, very durable. But man, I'm loving the color of this. Oh, that little knot coming in there, that's pretty. Make sure that every spot has gotten some. And then we're just going to let it sit for about 15 minutes. And right at the end, I'll show you what we do to actually wipe it off. So normally, let's see if we can reach that. Normally what I would do is if I'm doing like a dining room table, I'll have all the pieces set out and I'll do them all individually. And I'll have a series of like 3 or 4 pieces I'll wipe them on. And then I'll get another 3 or 4 pieces and I'll wipe onto that one. And then I'll go back and I'll wipe off the first pair, and then I'll wipe off the next set, and then I'll go on to the next set of pieces. And so you can actually finish an entire thing in one sitting. You can't do that with any other finish. It's one of those things where you kind of think about blocking out several days in a shop to do multiple coats of other finishes. So it's one of the reasons I love Rubio Monocoat, but it is very expensive.
Well, time is money.
Yes. Especially when you have a small shop, if I book out a large section of the shop for several days of finishing, number one, Sarah's not happy because then she's smelling the finish throughout the rest of the house. And this stuff actually smells good. What's the smell you get from it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like...
Your mother smells of elderberry.
It's a little sweet.
It doesn't really smell.
No, I think I get like a citrus toffee.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has an odor. It's not a strong odor, but you can definitely smell it up here.
Yeah, come smell it. Over here.
I've smelled Rubio Monica. But citrus toffee.
Yeah.
I look like I'm a hobo right now.
Yeah, but you're a cute hobo.
It smells like finish.
I know, that's the finish you know. You're not used to lacquer and
Oh, I've smelled lacquer.
varnish and
I don't feel like I'm like
getting
getting high, but
Yeah.
it's
Anytime I have to do
it's a very muted smell compared to lacquer and stuff.
anytime I have to do a film finish, that's when I get to take over the garage.
Yeah.
And then we heat the garage and try to seal it off from the rest of the house. And yeah, we did water locks on our wood floor upstairs, which I really like. It's a very durable, good, shiny surface. But actually putting down that finish, Sarah was about to die that night.
Is that the night I threatened to go to your parents' house?
Yeah, you're going to go to my parents' house and get away from the smell.
I don't do well with smells like that.
Yeah. So other finishes that would be shellac is a really common, very historical finish, and that goes on really easily. It's just an alcohol finish. And shellac can go on a bunch of different ways. You can get with a matte finish, you can get a gloss finish, you can build it up really thick and then shine it down. A lot of French polishes are done on top of that. Varnish and lacquer are two that used to be very common, but they're kind of waning a little less and less. They tend to be less used in comparison to poly, shellac, and new hard waxes. And they're a serious pain to do right. You have to have a sprayer if you really want to do those right. I mean, you can apply other ways, and other people will tell you, oh, they're really easy to wipe on, and then you try and do it, and it's like, most of the time, the ones I would say is a poly, which I like using a wipe-on poly, because you can get regular polyurethane, and then you can break it down with, it's thinner? Mineral spirits, there you are. Or white spirits if you're in English country. And if you thin it down 50-50, you can wipe it on very easily. It takes more coats to build it up. Usually I'm going to do somewhere between 5 and 10 coats of a wipe-on poly, but you can build it up to the exact sheen you want to get. That gives you a really nice protective finish, but it's a very standard finish. You look at something, you know, oh yeah, that was polyurethane. I'm not generally going to do boiled linseed oil and paste wax on furniture. It is not a durable finish. It's great for hand tools where I want to feel it, where I want to hold it, and I'm going to be working with it, or a bench top where I just want to get something in there to seal the wood. It's not something that's going to protect it from moisture. It's not an exterior finish. It's not something that I would... It requires a lot more maintenance. Whereas a poly, you put it on there and it's good for years. The problem with a poly is it's a pain to repair. If you get scratches in it, yeah, I mean, you can buff and polish and put a little bit in there, but you're always going to see the spot that's a little more shiny than the other spots where you've wiped on another coat on top of it. And so it's, yeah, there's a reason I like Ruby Monocoat. What finish are you thinking?
Well, I might try the Rubio Monocoat. I've never used it. I mean, other than that, I probably would have thought of shellac. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shellac is a really easy finish. You have to be careful with it because you can build it up too fast. You have to thin it out. I like to do about a 2-pound cut. And so really add in the denatured alcohol and thin it out a good ways. It's much easier to sneak up on the finish you want than putting it on thick. Don't wipe it straight out of the can. But shellac is it's very easy. And the nice thing about it is if you don't like it, you can put alcohol onto it and kind of spread it out again because you can reabsorb it, and what it does is etch into the shellac. And if you have a scratch on it, you can put alcohol onto the surface, let it kind of soften all of it, and then you can respread it around and put another layer on top of it, and you've got a nice clean surface again. And so it's relatively easy. Not quite as easy as this, but because the alcohol will dissolve it, you can do into it. And putting multiple layers on top of it, the layer on top will actually dissolve into the layer below, so you get a nice even bond. With poly, you're building a layer on top of a layer. They're not actually bonding into each other. Unless you put them on wet, so the previous coat's a little bit tacky. But then you have to be careful about not smearing it, and yeah. Yeah, and then I don't need to worry about dust with this, because the way we'll polish it off in a little bit, you'll see that there's dust is not a problem with Ruby Monocoat. So remind me when we leave, I'll give you some of this. So
okay.
I got a bunch of it.
Cool.
Yeah, a while ago I bought like a gallon of it because it actually stores pretty well, and I like it for furniture.
So, okay, since we're on the topic, because you've opened the cans, so then how long can you use the cans? You talked about what's mixed.
Yeah, because this stuff by itself doesn't cure very long. As long as I seal it back up, it's good. And so I can seal it with, if I have Bloxygen, I can put it in there, and its shelf life is years, if not decades. Another hobo trick to it, if you don't have Bloxygen, and if you don't know what Bloxygen, it's a small, like a spray can. It's a non-reactive aerosol that is heavier than air, and so it sinks. And so you can kind of fill up the can, put the lid on it, and there's no oxygen in the can for it to react to. Because this needs a lot of oxygen to react to, and so the small amount of oxygen that's in the can really isn't going to cure that much that's in there. But the hobo trick to it is you can use propane. Propane, you have to be a little quicker with it, but if you have a propane bottle, you just don't light the torch, you just and close it. And you can get the oxygen out, and the propane doesn't act with it. But now you have a can of propane.
Yeah.
I don't condone it, but it works. It works. So you know, if that's your thing. But yeah, I'll leave it on the only thing is that if you leave any drips with the what are they, not the sealant, the accelerator, there we are. This hardens and becomes almost like it almost feels like epoxy if it's on the outside. But the stuff on the inside, I have had a can in the shelf for over a year and a half that's been open and still work fine. I don't know if they have actual rating of stored for this long. What else you got, babe?
Sumi wants to know, have you heard of Odie's oil controversy, and what do you think about it?
The controversy of it? I have not heard of a controversy.
Okay.
Oh. Now there's a couple, because this is called a hard wax finish, because there's a few of them. There are Rubio Monocoat is kind of the big name right now, at least in the U.S. In Europe, the big name is Osmo.
Yeah, that was the other thing that they were asking about, was Osmo.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. I find Osmo to be a little bit less friendly than Rubio Monocoat, but very similar results. So they're basically the same thing. They're called hard wax finishes, which is kind of a misnomer because they're not really a wax, but they are a wax, and they're not really hard, but they do become hard. So it's kind of a confusing thing because there's also hard wax, paste wax. And yeah, I've gotten a few emails about that. Just, why is your hard wax hard? Because it's hard wax. Here, let's go back to this. So we've let it sit for about 10 minutes now. It's close enough. I'm going to come in here with a rag, and I'm going to wipe off any of the excess. And I'm just going to polish it down. And we got some on here. Just getting off the excess right now. There's not really any heavy science to it other than getting off anything on there. If you leave it on, you'll get this buildup of a little thicker material. So now that's all loaded up, I'm going to fold it over. And now I'm going to come in here with a bit of a pile, and I'm going to kind of polish it. Of course, I'm not on a flat spot on my floor, because there is no flat spot on my floor. Get the edges. And just like that, she's done. That's all you have to do to it. It's one of the easiest finishes in the world to do. And at this point, you can touch it and play with it. It feels, you feel a little bit of oil on there.
Yeah.
It feels like I put paste wax on it a little while ago. But give it an hour or so and it'll be dry to the touch. 24 hours and it's cured. And that's it. And you can see, I've gotten some finger stains down here And a lot of other furniture would be like, oh no, I got finger stings down there. Now it's going to be a darker shade, or I'm going to have a buildup on there. And with this, it just blends right into itself. No problems at all. And it does really well with glue smears. There just isn't a downside to it other than the price. Unless you like that really shiny surface, because it's a very, very matte surface. It's, here, let me see if I can get a better shot of this. Because there's no sheen to this at all. There's going to be a little bit now with the being a little bit wet. But it's a very, very matte surface. You can actually feel the wood and see the structure into it. And I really like that.
So for those who may not know, you say it's more. Like, can you give what it would be cost-wise compared to the others? Exactly?
This kit is about $100. It's like 100, 120, something in that range. But that kit is enough. If I was really, really careful with it, I could do 2 to 3 dining room tables. I could do a full chest of drawers easily on one kit. That's a lot of finish. Inside out and all surfaces of all the drawers, that's a lot of finish. And I could get it all with that. So, I mean, if you factor it into the price of the piece of furniture, it's not that much. But when you compare it to the same amount of poly, for $20, I could do the same thing with poly. So, depends on how you want to shake it. So, it's expensive in comparison. What's next?
Let's see.
Right. Got a couple minutes.
Benjamin Guerrero asks, have you seen a sliding dovetail that doesn't run the full apron? They enter larger holes and then slide into the dovetailed slot. I saw a video of it at Mr. Chickadee.
Yes. So what you would have is on the stretcher, oops, you would have a dovetail like here and a dovetail that was here. And so you would have the slots that they would fit into, but then you move them over an inch or so, cut a slot for them to sink down in, and then they lock into place. So it's kind of like a keyhole for a screw, but with sliding dovetails. And that works really well. The downside of those is that you have smaller dovetails. It means they're weaker, and they're not going to take quite as much lifting force. But there's no wood, there's no metal involved, and so it's a really simple way of just making something without hardware.
Do they tend to slide back and forth the way of the dovetail? Is that
Not generally. You make them tight enough so that you have to kind of pound them into place.
Yeah, okay.
And the friction holds it. My preferred way is actually to make the dovetail run the full length, and then just have the dovetail come out the back end of the table, and so it slides in the full length. That means you see the dovetail in the back of the table, but it means you have the full length strength holding in place. But different ways of doing it. Is that it?
I have one more.
One more? We'll do it.
Margaret Altvater. What finish would you use on kids' toys, specifically padauk and maple, wooden katana, and saya wood?
For something like that, I would actually just use homemade boiled linseed oil and paste wax. It's going to get beat up, but they're kids' toys, they're going to get beat up. But it's safe for a kid to put in their mouth, as long as it's a homemade boiled linseed oil, not the store-bought stuff. I mean, even that cured, there isn't a huge issue with it, but I would homemade stuff is good to drink. It's not good to drink. It's going to give you the runs, but it's safe to drink. So that'd be my preferred method, is a homemade boiled linseed oil and paste wax. Some people will do mineral oil soaked and then paste wax. The mineral oil doesn't last as long because it doesn't polymerize, so it will eventually wash out of the wood. I mean, Rubio Monocoat would be great for it. Just be an expensive thing to put on a kid's toy. but it would work well. But yeah, that's probably what I would use. So.
All right.
Cool. Well, on that note, I want to say a huge thank you to Dave for coming out. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it's been fun.
And yeah, I will have to do something else. So thank you.
All right.
So on that note, I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Cool. Yeah, I'll give you a